One of the things that I scratch my head about is what's the incentive for the banks? So you said some banks participate, some banks don't. What are some of those determining factors as to why a bank would participate versus opt not to?
Well, when the program first rolled out, one of the biggest pluses for banks is they were going to receive fees from the SBA for processing the loan. The fee, I don't remember the exact sliding scale, but it was an inverse fee schedule related to the size of the loan. The larger the loan, the smaller the fee as a percentage, but in actual dollars, it was greater than the smaller loans. But a lot of banks have come to realize that as they say, the devil's in the details, and where the SBA has kind of really put the burden on banks is on the forgiveness side, that the requirements the SBA has put in place for debt forgiveness under PPP, which is very unique. The review requirements for banks are pretty stringent right now. So as long as those are in place, a lot of banks are going, we put out all these SBA PPP loans for our customers and new customers, but now we got to get back to making sure that they're eligible for forgiveness. And that's going to be a very time consuming process for a lot of lenders. So that's why I think a lot of banks are saying, yeah, we've got enough on our plate. Let's not reopen it.
And is that what makes the triple P, so unique, is that there is forgivable aspects of it where, if you were to get other types of SBA loans in the past, it was basically just another traditional loan, just guaranteed through the SBA. Is that the biggest thing that you're seeing out of this? Is that because things are forgivable and it's that world that most people are interested in that, or is there something else?
Now, that's the biggest unique feature to this program, is that it is forgivable. And I've never seen a loan program from any source that has that feature to it. So that I agree, that is the biggest unique factor to this program.
And because it's forgivable, if people follow certain parameters, which are part of those 48 updates and amendments, if you will, I mean, is there anything to say to that at this point? Like, I mean, is there any kind of clear cut, black and white, do this, you'll be okay with getting to be forgiven? Because I mean, you're hearing that I think the average loan is in the state of Virginia is around $400,000. If I remember the last time I looked at that number. So that's a good chunk of change that basically to some people would be free money. I know it's not free money, but it could be. So is there anything that people can do to really make sure and ensure that that is forgivable?
At this point in time, they could go to the SBA's website and read the forgiveness application package that's in place at this time. The latest change, which occurred last week with the forgiveness application, is the SBA rolled out what they call the easy application, which could be used by probably a majority, if not almost all, PPP applicants. So that would help on the front end process. However, I strongly urge people to probably delay applying for forgiveness right now for a couple of reasons. One of them is the feedback we're getting from lenders is there's too much confusion right now as to what the SBA is going to require. So most banks aren't even taking forgiveness applications from their clients at this point in time. Also, with the SBA changes as from the Flexibility Act that was became law, I think back on the 5th of June, instead of having an 8-week window, borrowers have up to 24 weeks to use the money. So most banks are automatically going in and extending their borrowers' advance period to 24 weeks.
So
Furthermore,
so 2 months. So
yeah.
now it went from 6 months, from 2 months to 6 months, basically. I can't do math.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. And another thing is that with the changes that went into effect on June 5th, borrowers now have 10 months before they either need to put the loan on repayment or apply for forgiveness. Beforehand, it was a kind of a murky, when do you apply? It's like, well, when you feel like it, but you better do it soon. That's been changed. So you have more time. You have up to 10 months to actually apply for forgiveness. And to me, the biggest unknown at this time is that there's discussion by certain members of Congress to actually build in a blanket forgiveness of any loan $150,000 or less. If that becomes law, then all the smaller borrowers will need to do is actually sign a certificate saying, I followed all the rules, and therefore that's the end of the process. If that goes into effect, it probably wouldn't happen until late this summer because of all the recesses that Congress has during the summer. But I'm just cautioning people, don't go into the forgiveness application too early because so many things are changing.
So if I heard that right, if you had roughly a PPP loan for $150,000, the thing that is being talked about right now, as of July 2nd, 2020, maybe we should put the date in there because who knows, 2021 is going to be a thing.
Very true.
July 2nd, 2020.
At 11:17
at 11:17 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, is that if you had a loan for $150K
or less,
and you check a box, it will probably be forgiven, is what they're talking about. Is that because it's going to be hard to audit so many smaller things? And the bigger side of that, like, what's the reasoning behind that?
The rationale I've seen put out in the press from the originators or the authors of this measure is that they've done an analysis. I don't know the source of it, that to comply with the current forgiveness requirements, it could take a borrower so many hours that it can convert to about between $1,000 and $2,000 of time for the business owner to apply for forgiveness. And then it would take the bank involved an additional, I think they came up with $750 worth of time to actually review everything the borrower submits. So they're saying on a macro scale, it's going to cost the economy billions of dollars to process all these small loans. So that's the rationale they're using to say it just doesn't make financial sense to put everybody through this for such small return. I mean, a lot of borrowers got under $100,000. They're very honest in their efforts. The chances of them trying to defraud anybody are probably slim to none.
Yeah, that's one of the fascinating things that Zach and I are always talking to companies about is how you scale. And so this is like a real manual process. Have banks updated their way of doing things in terms of like any automation or artificial intelligence type thing to scan these forgiveness things, or is it still very manual?
It depends on the lender, and that's probably where the fintechs have an advantage. They are so technology driven that they've got the AI in place to deal with these types of documents in a more systematic manner than a lot of banks. Some banks are outsourcing to third-party vendors, not only the review process, but the development of the software. But ultimately, the way the document or the review documents read right now, it's still up to the lender to put eyes on the borrower's information. Now, they haven't specified are those electronic eyes or manual eyes, but I think most banks are going to take the approach that some person has to touch the paper at some point in time.